white tree, the tree of the king, will never bloom again.
Why are they still guarding it?
They guard it because they have hope. A faint and fading hope that one day it will flower. The king will come, and this city will be as it once was, before it fell into decay. The old wisdom born out of the West was forsaken. Kings made tombs more splendid than the houses of the living, and counted the old names of their descent dearer than the names of their sons. Childless lords sat in aged halls, musing on heraldry, or in high cold towers asking questions of the stars. And so the people of Gondor fell into ruin. The line of kings failed. The white tree withered. The rule of Gondor was given over to lesser men.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our show, Lord of the Collections. I'm your host, Falkris, and this is my co-host, Tyler Macklin. And joining us today, we have Aller in the Gray, Adam, and Julian Manev, who I believe goes by his name on the forum. He's a man with no secrets, nothing to hide. Today we are going to have just a little roundtable discussion on the Lord of the Rings Middle-earth items that Weta have previewed at Comic-Con. And so yeah, it's just a little informal gathering to share our thoughts, what we liked, what we didn't like, and who's getting what. So let's get started.
Yes. Yeah, what did Weta call it? Is your Collectibles Unleashed? Or no, that was Collectibles Expo. They're always changing the name of their
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought it was a solid kind of lineup. You know, they started off with the appetizers of the mini epics, you know, the Frodo, Aragorn, and the Cave Troll. And I don't collect mini epics, so I don't know how you guys thought of those, but I don't know if you're a mini epics fan. I think you could be happy with those. I don't know. You know,
I
and
think so. Yeah, I thought the little mini epics are really nice. As always, they're kind of cute and take little shelf space. So if you collect them, I'm sure you were ecstatic. They were the Cave Troll in particular was very successful.
Yeah, and the LSR, I think you got to be happy with that if you're a mini epics collector. And then Weta kind of. I don't know, they were kind of all over the place this year because originally they were going to do their master collection reveal on Friday, and then it kind of got bumped to Thursday, and we were expecting some of the other reveals on, so it was a bit of a but I thought the mini Treebeard, I thought that was a great little mini piece. It's great to see, I think we've actually talked about previously, like how we'd like to see the Ents in the mini line. And, it's a great way for new collectors to get Treebeard into their collection without having to spend a fortune on the master collection or the sideshow bust, so, what did you guys think of the mini Treebeard? Did you like the pose? Did you like the height? Could it have been bigger?
I really enjoyed it. I'm one of those people that's really excited for it just because prices that are being asked for that 6-scale Treebeard, it's ridiculous. It was never going to happen. So it's a good alternative, like you said, for those who missed out on the Master Collection. I think the pose looks really good. I kind of like the idea of him kind of like straightening out his beard. That was kind of a neat pose. Would I have wished that maybe it was a little bigger? Sure. But I think it's a solid mini collectible.
Yeah, how about you, Julian?
Yeah, that I agree. I thought he was really excellent, and it was interesting hearing Richard say that he was actually based on the files for the Masters collection. So the detail is definitely there. He is a mini, so the scale is what it is. I think what really is cool about it is that it really opens the door for an Entmoot. I think
Yes.
we can finally see a path for here's 7 or 8 ends that you can have, which wouldn't break the bank, which even Leaflock was quite expensive. So I think he was a really good thing to do. And in many ways, fans have been asking for it for quite some time. So I think it's a really nice gesture from Weta that here's a version that you can put on a shelf. It doesn't take massive amount of space, and it doesn't cost a fortune.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see if like you're saying, it opens the door to the Entmoot, and I could see Weta giving us some of the other Ents in that mini line. And then I could certainly see someone like Andy Me creating like a little, that weird like sundial kind of rock that they're all huddled
Oh, yeah.
around during the Entmoot. I could totally see somebody making a custom one of those to put your Ents around, so you have an Entmoot, and or maybe Weta includes that with one of the Ents in the future. I don't know, but I think I would give him about a 9 out of 10. Just I wish he was a little taller.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to have him the same size as a 1/6 scale character. You
Yeah.
know, that would have been nice, but it is what it is, and I think it's great that for those of us who aren't Valkyrs, who don't have the Master Collection, we can add it to finally add Treebeard to our collection. So
I mean, I really liked it. I thought it looked really cool. Obviously, because I have the Master Collection piece, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean a person wouldn't want the smaller version. I do. I mean, I have minis of larger characters as well. So, I mean, it's really the only 2 scales I dabble in is the 1/10 and the 1/6. That's why I haven't gone into other companies that are starting to do like 1/4 or 1/3. But yeah, I mean, you guys covered it pretty well. It's a wonderful opportunity for collectors to get this character at last without paying thousands of dollars, or going with Eagle Moss versions or things like that. And as far as the size, I think that's yeah, sure, he could have been a little bigger, but that kind of starts to defeat the point of it being a mini. And also, if you're conscious of the price, I mean, every inch they add to a statue, that's going to increase the price exponentially. So I think to keep it reasonably within the mini range price, that's probably about as tall as they could make it. I know their licenses also have certain stipulations as to the height of how far they can go with characters. So that might have played a factor into it. I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean, he looks amazing. They did a really good job, and it's funny. One thing that my wife pointed out when looking at it right away was like, "Where are the boys?" And it took me a second to like, "What do you mean? Oh, there's no Merry or Pippin on his shoulder," because she's used to seeing the Masters piece in my room, and it's just like they're just there. So you get used to the Merry and Pippin being on the shoulder, and but this is they would have been really small had they included them, and I like that they made this just really basically about Treebeard. So
yeah,
I think we got a photo coming up. And another thing that I'd wondered too, and you could see a lot better in the close-up photos now, is how are they going to do all those branches? Because again, on the Masters, and I just unboxed mine and put it together after about 5 months in storage, and that was a royal pain because I mean the stickers were long gone, so I had to go through the photos online, and it's amazing that there isn't an actual comprehensive YouTube video that someone has put together that goes through the entire process. The Weta video goes by at like warp speed. It doesn't show nearly all of the branch locations. I think Leonard just kind of like edited really quickly, and you don't nearly see anything. So had to go on the forum and search for the photos, and I think I finally managed to get them all correct, and it took like 2 hours. And so anyways, the obviously a lot of those branches are just not present. Like a lot of the smaller leafy bits are not present on this one. It just wouldn't have been possible at this scale. They would be so fragile and would just break off. But they did get like a whole bunch of the ones at the back, which are actually the bigger ones. So yeah, given the scale, I think the detail is amazing. And yeah, like you guys said, this really opens the door for the Entmoot. To, you know, if you can bring back a smaller version of Leaf Lock and Skin Bark and Quick Beam and all those guys. And if they did that, I mean, for someone like myself that might not be interested in this piece because they have the larger one, if they did start doing all the ends at this scale, that could potentially make it so, well, I can't have a mini Entmoot and not have Treebeard, and then that could be their way to sort of double dip into that, you know, select number of collectors that have the masters to actually pick up this space. So
Yeah.
I think it's awesome
And like,
that they did it. Yeah.
I don't know if they'll continue making more ends in 1/6, or if that Leaf Lock was kind of just like a passion project for Daniel. But I think they'd be better off perhaps switching to the mini line for the ends and doing the whole thing so you can collect the Entmoot. Much like how, you know, you can collect the Hobbit holes for Hobbiton, you know, Weta has a chance here to do all the ends for us, and we can create the Entmoot on our, you know, display, you know, which would be very difficult to do in 1/6 scale.
Yeah,
Plus,
that would.
Treebeard is at Isengard right now, and so is Leaflock, so you can't even do the Entmoot in 1/6 unless they give us new 1/6 ents, and I don't see that happening.
I think what's interesting to keep in mind is just on the back of the recent Balrog mini as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we see down the line a classic series Treebeard as well, who is bigger than this, but not 1/6. I suppose if this one proves popular enough, I think that certainly would be a possibility.
That's a very good point. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, me neither.
You know,
That'd be fantastic.
yeah. So let's move on then to the Black Gates. You know, we kind of knew this one was coming for a long time. It was just, well, when is Weta going to show us it? You know, and I think it looks great. What do you guys think? You know, I think the big discussion on it was size. Could have been bigger. Was the size good? You know, so what do you guys think about it?
I mean, I get that, you know, they're starting to really condition us towards the larger environments of late. So I can see where people would start to complain, like when you get the dimensions, that like, oh, that seems kind of small. I mean, when I measured the base of the new Sauron, which is actually round versus this oval, and from the long end to long end on this base, it is exactly the same width as the anniversary Sauron. And if you have that piece, you know that it's quite large. So that immediately switched my frame of mind from like, oh, this might be too small, to like, oh, that's actually quite big. So I like the fact that it's not as big as Bag End or Helm's Deep. And yeah, in this guy's hands, it actually looks quite large. And he's smaller. I mean, there's such a fine amount of detail on these towers and all the little spikes. I think they got it pretty much about right, because otherwise, let's face it, it's not like at least to me, it's not a super exciting environment or location. I mean, obviously it's very important to the movies, but it's kind of like, well, it's two towers and a gate kind of thing. So do you really need it to be bigger? I suppose if they'd done it bigger, they could have done something like, oh, the gates can be opened as an extra feature kind of thing. But I think it's kind of perfect as it is. If you look at some of those overhead shots, there's a lot of dead space in front of the gate. Like obviously it has to be there. That's the plane. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Minas Tirith. But I always thought like if they did like a crescent shaped base, which would be weird because I mean Weta's they only ever do circles or ovals. I've never seen any other shape for their bases. But if they'd done something like a crescent, they could have eliminated all of that dead space in front of it, kind of included it just up to where the path and the marks from the gates are on the ground, and would have been fine. I mean, there's no armies of the West there, so it's just an empty, featureless plain, and you're paying, you know, probably a fair bit of money for the extra polystone that has nothing on it. But I mean, whatever. I think the price is about right for a piece this size, and yeah, I like it. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I think they got it just about right for me. What do you guys think?
I like the little path that they included where the Easterlings, you know,
Yes.
you saw them marching, and unlike, you know, the Minas Tirith road up front, you know, it's this, you can tell not much thought has been put into this road. It's kind of like this wandering trail. It's not straight, and then the tracks for the wheels, you know, they've included where the wheels constantly went, which I think was a nice little detail, you know.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like it. The size doesn't bother me at all. I don't need a giant black gates environment. I think this is a pretty great size right here. The detail, it's there. I mean, if that can translate over into the production piece, it's just going to be incredible to look at. But it is a very simple sort of environment. It's just a wall, basically. But I do appreciate those little details, the Easterling track, like we said, the little goblin tent that's kind of in the back of it.
Yeah.
You see that was a cool touch too. Other than them like sculpting itty bitty trolls on the tracks in the back.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine what else they would do with it.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, the detail, like the spikes, and it's really well done, I think, especially considering it's not a huge environment like the Argonath or Bag End, you know, is the detail is really quite good when you think about, and it's kind of been mentioned before too, like those big environments, the Argonath, the new Bag End, those aren't really the norm, you know, like we've kind of gotten maybe a little used to, oh, you know, everything's going to be big now, and you know, one could make the argument that those are really just special one-off anniversary, like they went really big for the 20th anniversaries, and this is more back to normal size for some of their environments, you know.
But those are also, they're like reboots in a way of previous statues from the Sideshow Weta era, which were smaller. So it makes sense that they're making those bigger, because that's like a way of like, oh, we can get away with releasing this environment again because we're just giving them a bigger one. This is really the first Black Gates we've ever had. So, you know, I think it's kind of a happy medium between the size of the older pieces and the new ones that are a lot larger. So, like regarding actually, I thought about like, you know, the trolls are big enough that they could have put them in, and, you know, it'd be kind of a neat little feature, but I could be imagining it, but I seem to remember reading or hearing a long time ago that they would never put people or creatures on the environment. So like it is strictly an environment piece. So there would be nothing that lives in a sense that would ever appear in these pieces. And I guess I kind of like that just to maintain that consistency. So
I like that. Yeah.
The only one where I think that rule is kind of broken is with the Argonath, where they have the fellowship in the boats.
all right, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Everything else,
little boats,
like Bardir doesn't have an eye, you know. There's nobody in any of the other environments. But speaking of Bardir and eye, we got a new mini Bardir, which,
hang on, we didn't get Julian's thoughts on that Black Gate.
oh, true, we didn't.
I really loved it. I think the thing that I think also need to think about is that it's an open edition. and I think that's a really good move by Weta on this one. I suppose that maybe also dictated the size of it. I think the size is excellent because you're really starting to wonder where would you put all of these big environments. Things like Helm's Deep, you can't have too many of those. Whereas this one, it's almost a kind of bookcase size rather than something bigger. I was just looking at my old Alan Lee cover, and you can just imagine a very nice display with the whether it's the more recent box set with the Alan Lee Blackgate and this piece right beside it. So I think the size is excellent. The detail is fantastic, and it kind of ticks all the boxes. To me, it's a 10 out of 10. I can't fault it at all.
Yeah, that's a good point. Especially the open edition. It's nice that we've gotten it as an open edition. You know, the rush isn't there to add it right away if you kind of have to pick and choose what you're gonna add. And so it's nice that we have another open edition, and all excellent points. Yeah. So now we can move on to Bar Dirt. If I can figure out here we go. So what did you guys think of this? I thought for its size, it was very well detailed.
Yeah. Personally, I'm excited for this too. Same thing with Treebeard. Can't find Barad-dûr. I'm not about to spend a whole bunch of money on it on the aftermarket because it's kind of ridiculous. But this looks fantastic for what it is. I've got the mini Orthanc, and the detail on that, you know, in pictures, you can only capture so much. When you have it sitting in front of you, I think it looks a lot better. And it's a lot more, I don't know if impressive is the right word, but it's a fun little piece. It's a good option. The details are definitely there. And I think Barad-dûr is going to be much the same. I really appreciate the fact that the eye is removable. Whether you can choose, you have that option there. I don't know if Weta does the interchangeable sort of pieces very often. It doesn't seem like they do, so it's kind of nice to have an option with this piece.
Yeah, I think, and they did a great job on the eye too. Like, it looks fantastic.
It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, my only real little gripe about it is it looks a little too big compared to the rest of the tower, but
yeah,
you know,
that was my thought too.
A very minor gripe about it. Other than that, I think it's a great piece. And like you're saying, if you can't track down Barad-dûr, or if you don't want to pay the price that Barad-dûr is going for, like the Dave Tremont, the larger one, this is a great way to add this location to and if you got the black gates with this size, depending on how you set up your display, it would kind of look like a forced perspective if you set it up behind the black gates, which would be pretty cool depending on how your display was. You know,
I think similarly to Treebeard, also it's worth noting that it is also based on the files of the bigger one. Then you could really see the detail of that coming through. It is stripped back somewhat, and the base is smaller. But I thought it was a really nice option for people. I would certainly be picking this one up, and the interchangeable eye is excellent. You could see why it's a little bit bigger just to be able to slot in, but they've done a really good job with this, and I think it's one of those things that again collectors have been looking for an alternative for a while, and I think that's a really nice thing for Weta to do.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys have said. I mean, to play the devil's advocate here, aside from the eye looking a tad big, I'll be the nitpicker the first time today, and I kind of feel like I do have the bigger version, and based on that, I mean, obviously I don't know whether that one's correct versus what we see in the movie or the bigature that they used. But something about the dimensions of this one looks slightly off. Like I feel like the base, like basically where the mountain rock part begins, and then from there on to the base versus the actual tower portion, they don't seem to be the right proportion to each other. I feel like the base should be longer and a bit wider, but that could just be me. I'm not sure, but it doesn't seem quite correct. Or they might have just, maybe it's just a compromise to get it down to this size and including all that detail, and they didn't want to widen the base any further, but something about it just doesn't quite look right. And it could be for me just having years of looking at the bigger version that is throwing me off a little bit. But if you don't have that handicap, I guess, then it doesn't really matter. This would be perfect. Otherwise, I like it. I think for the size, again, an incredible amount of detail, and it gives people an opportunity to have this piece in their collection. So, yep.
One thing I like about it is the rock looks a bit more feral, compared to the larger version. Like it really looks really gnarly and just and I think quite cool. I don't know how accurate, if the rock was that jagged on what we see on the screen, I can't remember, but it does look very cool. And like I guess it's one of the benefits of them now sculpting so many things digitally, is they can get such great detail into something so tiny, whereas I'm not sure if before they could do that. So
Definitely.
yeah, to me it's a 9 out of 10. Only just my little nitpick is I thought the eye was just slightly too big, but that's really being really nitpicky, because the eye looks great, and I wish it was a little bigger actually, so I could stick it on my other one.
Right.
Okay, and so Thursday we all kind of got a treat, and that's when Weta unveiled their Master Collection statue. It's always highly anticipated. We always look forward to it, even if you're not gonna get it. It's always kind of a fun time to be a collector, just to like marvel at, wow, what could Weta do with no restrictions, and that's what kind of, that's part of the fun of the Master Collection series. And it's just a fun event. And I don't think Weta disappointed this year. I thought it was a really cool piece, a very cool concept. Like the lava looks phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the bird, like why here? Like from some angles, it looks like taxidermy. Like Gary Hunt, just the guy must have slaved away for hours on feathers.
They said 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just a phenomenal piece.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm eager to hear your guys' thoughts on it. What you like, what you don't like, what you thought could have been better, what you thought they just nailed. If there was anything that could have been better.
I think it's my personally, it's my favorite Masters collection so far. I think they've done a phenomenal job on Why here. He just looks incredible. The details there, as you said, the lava and the LED effect is beautiful. I think they've nailed that. It probably is their best use of LED ever. Even better than the Dead Marshes. At first, whenever these photographs came out, I thought the base might be a little bit small, but it's strange looking at it in the San Diego photographs, where you could see it to scale with other things. It is actually quite big. So I think that works really well. I think their choice of making it at the kind of miniature scale, the 1:10, 1:11 Daniel mentioned, was right. I think an eagle that's 2 meters wingspan would have been very, very niche for anyone to place anywhere. The eagle as it is nearly life size. The average eagle might be 1.8. If this one is 1.2 wingspan, it is huge. If there was one thing, and I feel bad saying it, but if there's one thing that kind of bugs me about it, is the way the eagle is attached to the rock. I know why they've done it that way, but if there was a way for the rock to slip past the eagle rather than being directly underneath it, and kind of attach the eagle to the side rather than directly below, it may have just cheated slightly that that problem. But otherwise, it looks stunning. I think it's a brilliant piece. And I can imagine it will be a real centerpiece for any collection, and really look forward to seeing some photographs of it in hand in people's collections.
Yeah, definitely. I agree pretty much with everything you said. The way that the eagle is perched on there, it's my one real critique. Other than that, the lighting looks excellent. At first, though, maybe this is another sort of critique, but it kind of reminded me of like, just like from this photo right here, it kind of looks like molten pizza. But maybe that's just me. But it looks very good in the context of the photos at the con. It looks fantastic. Frodo and Sam right there look great. Gandalf looks awesome. I almost want to say he looks better there than in the classic series statue. It's very close because I like that classic series statue too. But Gwai looks majestic. Those eyes are so piercing. Every little detail on the feathers, just the knowledge that he spent so much time working just on sculpting feathers. I love that. It just shows the dedication that these artists have for what they're doing, how much love they have. Frodo and Sam lying there look pretty good. Yeah, it's a majestic scene. It's beautiful in the movie. It's stunning here, right in the sculpture. And I've been racking my brain for the past couple days trying to figure out if I can actually do this. So,
yeah,
I have roughly a month to figure it out.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But this is something I would definitely love to shoot for.
Yeah.
I think it is the best master collection piece, in my opinion.
I agree. I've been having the same. This is the first one that has actually tempted me to really consider digging in for it. The one thing that maybe is worth noting, and it sometimes maybe gets a little bit forgotten, but I think the paintwork on this is exceptional. I think the amount of details and tones that on Frodo and Sam, on the rock, on the lava is truly exceptional. So I think as well as the sculpting, I think the paintwork on this is probably one of their best yet. One thing that I am not quite sure, and I think Weta revealing this at Jerry's booth added to the confusion, is whether you get the print with this piece, and it didn't seem clear to me, and I'm not sure whether it is, whether you do or not, or they have a different print that will come with the master collection. And I suppose just worth noting as well, I thought Jerry van der Stelt's print was exceptionally beautiful as well, and a great companion piece to this piece.
I had thought that his print would be available, like if without the master collection, like you can just, I think you can buy it from his. Well, he said his website's under construction, but email him for information. And you know, if you can't, if the master collection is out of your reach, buying that print is, it's a nice kind of consolation. Because it is a really cool, like it like the lighting, the way the detail on Frodo and Sam on it looks so crisp. It's just a great painting by Jerry, and he nailed it. And you were talking about rock and lava, and I don't think anybody does rock better than Weta. And Collectibles, and like they cut their teeth on the films making the rock, right? And I don't think anyone makes rock better than Weta. And one thing worth mentioning on this piece, which you can't tell from the pictures, but the light for like the LEDs for the lava actually kind of pulses, so it makes it look like it's flowing.
Yes.
They have it programmed so that it makes the lava flow. It's not just static, which I think was a really cool feature.
They showed it off there. It looked fantastic.
Yeah. One thing I don't really have any real nitpicks about the statue. I know some people kind of thought, well, they should have stuck to 1/6, and I do think it would have been pretty cool to see, okay, how crazy could they do? To see it at 1/6, that would have just been really, like, it's cool. Can you imagine how, like, just insane it would have been if they had stuck in 1/6? I understand why they didn't, but it would have been cool to see. I was a little bummed though that Weta must have had a small crew at San Diego, because there was no live stream for the unveiling of it. There was no fanfare. Like Weta's social media didn't really have anything up for, like, I don't know, an hour or more afterwards it was revealed. And for us who didn't go to San Diego, we were all just kind of sitting in the dark waiting for somebody to post pictures of it. And eventually they got it on their website. But I thought, a statue like this is the big piece, for the year. And I thought Weta kind of dropped the ball on unveiling that, doing a grand, live stream unveiling. That has nothing to do with my thoughts on the piece, but like you guys have pretty much nailed most of the stuff that I thought. Gandalf looks great, especially in that size. The detail on him, and just like the feathers, everything about it is very awe-inspiring, and certainly a centerpiece collection for anyone. Val, are you gonna pick this up?
Well, I got a massive disappointment with it. And I'll tell you why. I mean, where are the other two eagles? Come on, if you're gonna depict this scene properly, like, go shoot for the stars, man. Like, there were 3 eagles there, not just one. So that's a big thumbs down from me. Weta not representing this scene properly. So I'm just kidding, guys. Seriously,
he had me going for a minute.
Yeah, it's as enormous as it is. I love it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, in a perfect world with lots of room and lots of money for everyone, yeah, it'd be cool to have the other two. Although, it would be, as as much as we're complaining about how this eagle attached, I can only imagine the hoops they would have had to jump through to even get 2 other flying creatures attached, like, to this. But anyways, that totally jesting. And yeah, for anyone that is out there sharpening their knives because this is not 1/6, I mean, seriously, come on. People like to dream and like to want certain things. I mean, I'm certainly among them sometimes, but realistically, like, go back and watch the movies to see. I mean, you can see it here, what Gandalf's size is like compared to this eagle, and then pick up your 1/6 Gandalf statue and imagine a 1/6 eagle beneath them. And yeah, it's like trying to fit a small car into your collection room, because you got to have the wings outspread and nothing else would do here. And it's insane. They would need to send a truck with 1 box to your door. The shipping would be brutal. I don't think a lot of folks consider all the ramifications of a piece this big. And you know, been around for a while. We've interviewed a lot of collectors. I know a lot of people online and through, you know, multiple forums, and I could think of probably one, maybe two people that would pick something up that big and that expensive. So yeah, sometimes we just got to bring our feet back down to the ground and be realistic. And I think maybe Weta started out thinking, hey, what if, but quickly realized that no, it's impossible. No one would buy this. And yeah, I think this is the perfect size. Includes everything that should be in that scene. I think for me, like the one thing that would be missing in everything I look at this, and to me, it is probably the most evocative moment in the soundtrack of all three movies, is the music that plays in this moment when the Eagles. You see them in the distance approaching, and just that voice, and it you know, it sends shivers down my spine. So yeah, I could almost set up a small, you know, speaker behind it and just have that playing when somebody walks by. I think that would be amazing. To answer your question, Tyler, am I getting this? Yeah, I fortunately don't think so. It's for one, even at the reduced scale, it's still, seeing it in the video on the booth, it is still quite massive. You know, I'm impressed they got it on, you know, with what is relatively small base, I think, all things considered, but with the wingspan of the Eagle, you need a ton of space for this thing, and I am just tapped out. I'm having trouble finding room for the current pieces I have that require more than just a bookshelf. Like a lot of the environments, for example, Bilbo and Bag End, you know, Sauron, the pieces have just gotten so big these days that the space has just completely vanished. To have something like this, yeah. So, and then there's what is likely to be a very high price. So it'll have to be a pass for me. I'm very sad about it because it looks amazing. The lava is stunning. And another thing is that, you know, I'm one of those completists that I've always wanted to have a representation of every single peoples or creatures or monsters or races of Middle Earth in my collection. And so I've long wanted to have one of the eagles, Gwaihir specifically. And I did pick up the little 110 from The Hobbit. Sorry, that's not 110. That's it's in the 110 line, the mini base, but obviously that's way scaled down. So that really feels like a poor man's consolation prize now compared to this. But I wish there was kind of an in-between statue that they would make of Gwaihir, just to have an eagle that's not a Masters and a little bigger than that little guy. But maybe one day. But yeah, I think it's well done.
And so after, you know, on Thursday, we also got a treat. You know, we weren't sure if we were gonna get any more 1/6. You know, we kind of hoped we would, but
I think while we were switching, the other thing that's very interesting about the space question, and I think it will come topical with this as well, is it's not just the space to take the piece and to display it, but also the room that it needs around it. You can't put a piece like this Masters collection immediately next to something completely different in a different scale, in a different environment. So I think the question about how big it is needs to also be judged with the thought of where would you put it and how close to the next one beside it would it have to be, just to give it that room to breathe, which I think it definitely deserves.
Right.
Yeah. Every master collection, I think, deserves their own kind of space.
Yeah.
You know, to properly be displayed and showcased. Anything else is a bit of a disservice too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know about you guys, but I was psyched for the Fountain Guard. You know, I've often been, you know, saying we need more Gondor. This has got to be the summer of, you know, you guys probably heard the term hot girl summer. This is Gondor summer, you know. Like that's what I've been hoping for, you know, and so to see this, I was very psyched, you know. I think on our last episode I said I'm not a huge fan of the wings on the side, but I'm still happy with getting Fountain Guard regardless. You know, I just think it was a very, very cool piece, and kudos to Weta for bringing this into the classic line. And so we can see if we can just kind of watch the. Let me know your guys' thoughts on it. What? How do you like the pose? How do you like the detail? What do you think about it?
Stunning. He looks great. The position, like this regal, like he's just sitting there doing his duty. It's a very simple sort of pose. The way that he's sort of looking off into the distance it's a really nice touch. It's very subtle, but it looks great. The spear. I mean, I don't know what else you would want him to do. I think it's the armor speaks for itself. The way that every little piece is sculpted, the finish on it, the paint. I mean, even the crazy feathers off to the side, they just, I mean, that's it. That's the Fountain Guard right there. It looks very impressive. Even as silly as those wings on his helmet are, they do have this sense of like majesty to them, as goofy and impractical as that is. I think he looks very good.
Yeah, like he's so regal looking, and then like just the detail they got in there. You know, the cloak, like the embroidery on the cloak, everything about it just looks fantastic. I think. You know, what did you think, Julian?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I thought the Fountain Guard stole the show. Their classic series, I'm a big fan of, and I have most of them. And I think the thing that they do really, really well with them is that the poses are calm, they're weighty, they're not trying to be too dynamic, and I think that fits the Fountain Guard beautifully. The paintwork is incredible. The details there. I thought the drapery on his cloak looks phenomenal. It's probably one of their finest classic series pieces so far. It kind of reminds me of Isildur, the way that it is so calm and it tells a story in itself. Particularly the premium version of it is exceptional. I think to pick up your point about the way the Masters collection was revealed compared to this one, I think that this just blew me away as soon as it was seen on shown on the video. The love that you could see both Leonard and Richard have for this piece, and the care that they've taken to first do a unnamed soldier, rather than another named character. I think that just speaks for the love that these guys have for the material as well. And I couldn't be happier. I think this is the one to go for this year. If you were only going to get one piece, I think this is the one.
One thing I don't know how many people noticed it too, but like on his cloak and on his like kind of I don't know what you call it, a kilt or whatever. Like there's the odd bit of stitching that's kind of been like kind of frayed or pulled out. You know, it's not all uniform, which is just a really cool little detail, you know, that shows age, and you know, like it's not mint, it was handmade, you know, like and for them to capture that in a statue, you know, the way that to make that fabric, you know, polystone look like an aged fabric, I thought was a really cool, nice little touch that Weta is especially good at,
Yeah,
Val, what did you
I
think?
mean, I'm blown away, and I would be. I think we'd all be hard pressed to find anyone that isn't blown away by this piece. It's stunning. It's a representation of like a nameless character that I've always wanted them to realize in Polystone for a long time. I personally, I love the helmet. The wings don't bother me. I think they're straight out of the lore. They're straight out of the books. That's kind of how I've always envisioned them to be. And it's important to remember also that this is not meant to be a practical get up for
Right.
battle. This is ceremonial armor. These are ceremonial guards. They're not. I don't think we see them ever, engage in combat. In the movie, there's a moment where the Nazgul fly by and people are running past the fountain, but I bet these guys probably ran inside and changed into something a little more practical in case the Citadel was threatened. But yeah, it's beautiful. Especially like the close-ups of the face, and maybe perhaps because you can't see his face and just the eyes, but it looks photorealistic.
It did.
I was looking at it, I'm just like, is this a photo of an actual person that they snuck in there, or no? But it's the statue, and it looks incredible. Yeah, the detail, the stitching, the cloth. Again, I was showing this to my wife, and when we went past where the hem of the cloak is, and I said, like, look how amazing that looks, and she said, well, that's cloth, right? He goes, no, they don't use. Unlike other companies, Weta doesn't ever use really a lot of alternate media. Sometimes they use some of that flexible plastic for some pieces. I may suspect these wings might be made out of that, but the cloth, I said, no, that's polystone, and they've refined their art of sculpting and painting to a level now that it really fools the eye, and I think that's just amazing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of fooling the eye, like this shot here, if you didn't know that was a statue, you'd think that was someone standing there in costume. It's just insane how convincing it looks. I wish we had pictures on the website so we could zoom in even more, because it's so fantastic looking. So I don't know about you guys, but I was super excited when, watching this. And then I just flipped out when they started mentioning, the fountain guards a tree, and I was like, no way, like you're joking.
I lost
right?
my mind too.
Yeah, like freaking out, and I couldn't believe that they would actually give us a white tree, and I can remember talking on the forum with a Thilden and saying, well, Thranduil on Throne, if they could do Thranduil on Throne, they could do a fountain guard with the white tree. It's the same kind of concept, right? It's whether will they do it. And I'm suggesting to Daniel, a white tree environment would be pretty cool, but you're not really thinking like they would actually do it. And so for them to come out with a white tree with the fountain guard and kind of give it the Bilbo and Bag End treatment, where you can get the classic series fountain guard and the white tree, was just, I thought it was really great. I was so excited. Like, I haven't been excited for a collectible like that in a long time. I mean, I'm not a super seasoned collector, but I was so excited for this piece, So
actually,
what do you guys think about it?
I just had a thought, like you mentioning Thranduil on Throne really made me think of like if you actually put the two statues next to each other, there are a lot of similarities. Obviously, there's no Thranduil there, but the static pose of the soldier and the spear and the tree beside it, it's like, wow, there's kind of a bit of a mirror image happening here. And it made me think that at the time, because I was not interested in that piece, but I thought if they had done the soldier just by itself as a separate piece, I would have picked it up. I really like the design of the Mirkwood elves, and I like having the generic soldier statues to represent the different cultures of Middle Earth without it having to be a specific named character. And I think there was a lot of people that asked Weta whether they would release the soldier just on its own. And I think it would have done quite well because, again, not a lot of people were interested in maybe the character of Thranduil or that particular representation or the giant price tag that came along with it and the space that it required. And maybe the soldier itself would have sold well. And Weta said no, but maybe privately they realized they kind of missed an opportunity there. And all these years later, maybe this was a reflection of that, of them thinking, hey, let's do the piece with the tree and the piece without the tree, and that way we can give our customers an option to have something a little more manageable, a little cheaper, but also to have this big showpiece for those that want it. And it does make me wonder if the genesis of that idea wasn't the Thranduil on throne with the soldier and them not making that separate soldier available, which I think would have sold really well. So
it had to have been discussed. I remember I thought that too. I was like, I love the piece, but it's massive, it's too expensive, but I would love that little soldier. Just that would be totally fine with me. So it must have been a conversation at Weta, because I think a lot of people felt the same, like you said, Valkrist. So yeah, this is a great, I'm loving that they're doing this limited edition and the classic series. What a great idea.
Completely. And one thought that I suppose I had, and it will be interesting to see whenever we get the photos uploaded on the website. But it would be great if the base of the classic series matches the height of the base of the premium. So for those who buy 2 or 3, which I would imagine people would, fountain guards to display around the tree so that they're all at equal level. So far it appears to be a little bit shallower, but I suppose that is easy enough rectified, I imagine. But the piece is stunning. The white tree is beautiful. It's again a bit like Isildur. It tells a story in itself, and I think that's where Weta's pieces really excel at. They're all telling a story, and this one says it all. So completely blown away by this one. I think this is a must-have. And yeah, even looking at the water and the cobbles, the detail of the roots, it's exceptional. I think it stole the show, really did.
Yeah, I agree. It was the showstopper, show stealer for me, partly because, and I was talking with Adam earlier about this, there's a bit of a mental thing in my head where it's like, well, I know I'm not probably getting the Master Collection. It's not a responsible purchase for me, and so there's a mental thing in my head where I'm like, okay, well, as fun as it is, I know I'm not getting it. So they're fun to look at, it's fun to get hyped about them and discuss them, but I know I'm not getting it, right? Whereas this, it's like, well, I know I can get this, so it's easier to get excited about this because well, I can get this, And so for me, it stole the show as well. Like the fact that they would do this and bring this and do the treatment where we can get the classic series or the tree, like kind of the Bilbo and Bag End treatment, I think. And I think that bodes well to, I'm hoping, in the future they do a Sam versus Shelob and do the same treatment where we can have Sam versus Shelob as a premium. But if you don't want a giant spider on your display case, you can just get Sam in the same pose, as a classic series. I hope I hope this sells well and they do that with Sam and Shelob in the future,
Yeah.
And the story you guys are talking, like there's the single flower, which I believe you see it during like the long night of Gondor during the siege when Denethor, and maybe that's what the Fountain Guard is looking. It's like, oh wow, look at the steward's on fire. What is he doing? Well,
Just
like,
ran
I don't
by.
answer to him.
Goodbye.
I don't answer to him. I guard the tree, but
Yeah.
didn't think I'd see that tonight. you know, we see that flower that night, you know, during the siege there, and it's kind of like, you know, that indication of hope, you know. And so the fact that they added that is a really great little touch, because they didn't need to, right? They could have easily just kind of overlooked that, you know.
But you know, the fans would have raked them over the coals if they had, you know, people are bothered that there is no white tree represented on the Minas Tirith environment
Yeah,
as is. If they had missed the detail of the flower on the tree, and given the size of the tree and how much detail they put into it, would not have gone over well. So, you know,
yeah.
kudos to them for remembering, catching that detail and adding it in. Because I mean, you talk about Easter eggs, that's a pretty awesome one.
Hmm. And I think it was mentioned with Guy here that the feathers wouldn't be polystone, but it would be like the wings would be a more flexible, kind of like the same thing that Sauron's mace and sword are made out of. And I had to think that these branches will be the same thing on this, that they'll be more of a flexible material, you know. So did you guys have
It'll
any
certainly make it easier.
nitpicks about it?
No, actually, I had thought immediately, when I saw it, I bet you some people are going to buy 3 more guards, like the
Oh yeah,
classic versions, and put it up
yeah.
with this. I had not at all caught on to what Julian just brought up, that they don't actually match level wise, because the environment cobblestones beneath are missing on the classic series, and I totally get that, because the classics are not meant to include a lot of environment, if any at all, in order to keep the cost down in that line. So I get why that's not there. But if you are planning to recreate the scene of having the 4 guards near around the fountain, that would cause an issue. I mean, the one way around that, I guess, is just to put something under the base of the classic series one to raise them up high enough, but then you still wouldn't have the stones. So you could do it, but
I think they do have some cobbles, but they're finer. They're not as deep.
right.
So it probably wouldn't take much to just prop them up a little bit with something below, or some of the many friends sculptors on the forum and elsewhere might be on the market with a replacement base for it, which may be very helpful. But I think easily you could imagine a very beautiful display with all 4, or even just 2 or 3 of the guards around it. Just have not only their face on, but the side profile, which just looks exceptional. I think it's one of those pieces that the more you look at in 3 dimensions in the videos, it's gorgeous from all angles.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, I mean, had this been the masterpiece collection for this year, I honestly would not have blinked an eye and thought like, oh, that's underwhelming for a masterpiece. Not at all. I think it's incredible, and you know, this is considered a premium in their 3 separate lines at the moment. But had there been no Quite here in Mount Doom, and this had been revealed as the masterpiece collection for 2023, I would never have thought that, oh, okay, that's not really how I thought, the direction I thought they would go, or it's not impressive enough, or not big enough, or whatever. No, I think this easily qualifies as something on that scale and level of grandeur. It's amazing.
Yeah,
It really is.
and I'm glad it isn't the master collection, because let's be honest, with the master collection, you are paying a bit just for that title, master collection, and this makes it far more obtainable for your average collector. And I'm assuming it's going to have an edition where, you know, how many are ordered, that's the edition size, whereas the master collection has a hard set edition, you know. It might be 500, it might be 400 or 300, you know. Whereas this, if you want it, you have the chance to get it. You're not gonna, oh, it's sold out, I waited too long. You know, you'll have the pre-order window, and and have the chance to get it. I know it was mentioned on the forum, and I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts about it. And Gwindor had kind of raised this, and it's not something I think I thought of immediately when I looked at it. I was just so excited, but he thought it was a bit on the small side, like it wasn't a true 1/6 scale, because the guard, the guard is too tall compared to the tree when we see it in the film. Do you guys think it's undersized, or does that bother you?
Is the guard undersized or the tree undersized?
The tree being undersized compared to the guard.
Oh, I think, and I mentioned this to you the other day when we were chatting. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if you have a screen cap from the movie handy, but is there some of the tree missing? Like there's more upper branches that we don't have here. So that could be throwing it off. I mean, yeah, it does. Not sure if in the movie, like you could see from this perspective, like the tips of the wings on his helmet are kind of lining up with, the bottom branches. I don't know if the tree in the movie, I mean, it is bent over and kind of, I don't know,
Yeah.
it looks right to me. I just think that they obviously didn't want to go full insanity and have the complete tree. So I do feel that some of the upper branches are not there, which is fine with me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't, unlike that little weirdness that I saw with the mini Barad-dûr, there's nothing here that's really bothering me size wise. So, no, not an issue for me.
No, it looks right to me. I would imagine, again, some of the branches are probably missing from it. But the tree is pretty withered in the movie too. It might be a little bit bigger than what we're seeing here, but I think artistically speaking, it just works somehow. It just clicks. Even like, I mean, yeah, I've seen some of these movie stills and I'm like, yeah, the tree might be a little bit bigger than what is actually presented in the statue.
Yeah.
But artistically, I think it works really well. I don't know what they did, but it just seems to fit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I really don't think it matters. It may be a little bit on the smaller side. It may be that some of the branches are missing. I think compositionally as a piece, it feels right and it feels complete and it feels really good relative to the Fountain Guard. So I have no issue with it being, even if it is slightly underscaled. It's as a composition, I think it works beautifully. Otherwise, I think if it was bigger, it may have dwarfed the Fountain Guard. And again, to go back to the conversation around the Master Collection and space, how big a tree can you really accommodate? With the escape of the road, the tree was cut at a flat top. And I think I'm delighted that they didn't do that with this one, where you only see a part of the tree. You get a part of the crown of it. So I think it's well judged.
Yeah. And
like, agreed on all points.
We sometimes we can be a bit, Lord of the Rings collectors, we can be a bit sticklers for accuracy, but sometimes, you have to let them have an artistic license. If I would rather this than them say, well, we can't do 100% 1/6 scale white tree, so you don't get anything.
That's the alternative.
Yeah, so if that's the alternative, I think anyone would say no, this is, and I agree. Like, sometimes they have to take artistic licenses with how they make things, like it's not feasible to add every tiny little branch onto this, like you can't cast that, you can't mass produce that, and so what we got, I think, is phenomenal. To me, this was a solid 10 and the highlight of the reveals, for me.
Completely agree.
And-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agree with that.
Now, were there pieces you guys were hoping you would see this week revealed and they weren't?
Theoden. But again, I think that was just collectors kind of wishing. I don't think there were too many hints about maybe Theoden on Snowmane or something was ever really going to happen, or at least not right now. I don't know. They could surprise me and say in a couple months they release a pre-order for it. But yeah, I was like, I was hoping that maybe a Theoden would come around our way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. You know, I was kind of hoping for a Theoden, and it seemed like a great time to unveil one. But at the same time, you know, I can understand them wanting to give the Master Collection some breathing room, and you know, so maybe delaying that a little bit if they're going to do it. This seems like the year to do it. And I know, like, if Athildan is watching this, he'll say, "Well, no, Denethor, give us Denethor."
Right.
But you know, like, if you had to ask the average collector, would you take a mounted Theoden from the Charge of the Rohirrim, aka you know the greatest scene of all time,
Yeah.
or the
Creepy
crabby
old man sitting in chair.
Yeah.
the jerk Denethor? You know, like 99 out of 100 collectors are going to be like, you know, give me Theoden from the Ride of the Rohirrim.
It's the morality of the character. If that was the case, nobody would have Sauron on their shelves, you know.
Yeah.
I think in this one, I
So-
would be the one of the 100. I'm dying for a Denethor on throne with the chair, and I think that would just be a bit like the Fountain Guard with the Horn of Gondor. It just tells such a great story, and you know, whatever I suppose people's feeling on the character it is, I think he is a pivotal character, and I think he really deserves. I would hope a similar treatment to the Fountain Guard, a classic series on his chair, and for the diehards, the Throne of Gondor in all its glory. And I think that would. I'm hoping that's coming next year. I think the Fountain Guard opened that door, and it would just make total sense. Theoden and Snowmane, I think, also would be phenomenal, and we've had many other rider pieces before. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes later this year. Leonard does say in the video that they do have more coming in the autumn. And if I remember correctly, Daniel had mentioned that the Return of the King is going to be 2 years. It's not going to be just one. So I'm expecting those a lot more this year and next year. So yeah, plenty to be looking forward to.
Yeah. And one thing to keep notice of too is Brigida is their horse master. Like, nobody sculpts horses better than Brigida, and we haven't seen anything from her yet this year, as far as I know. Maybe she did a mini, but we haven't seen a 1/6 piece from her yet. So could she be busy sculpting Snowmane? You know, and that's why we haven't seen her. But like you were saying, Daniel said the Return of the King will go well into next year, and that makes perfect sense, because if you look at all the pieces that we're kind of looking forward to, and there's just no way Weta can release all those pieces in, you know, half a year that we have left in 2023. You know, some of those pieces will have to go into 2024, because there's just no way they can do like you know, Denethor on Throne, Mounted Snowmane, or Theoden on Snowmane, Sam versus Shelob, anything with the Witch King, you know, or a Cirith Ungol environment, or Grey Havens. There's just no way they can fit all of that within this year, release it without breaking a couple of banks and a couple of marriages in the process. You know, it's just not gonna, it's just not doable. And so for some of these things, we are going to have to wait another year. But, you know, that's all right too, because, you know, we don't know the price on the Master Collection or the White Tree, but they're not going to be cheap, right? And so spreading these pieces out isn't a bad thing, you know, as much as we want to see everything right away, you know, it gets difficult trying to order everything all at once. So,
and I think pieces like the Witch King, there is no way Weta is not going to capitalize on a Witch King. It is probably one of the easiest character to rake in a little bit of profit on, because he is just so popular and the design is phenomenal. So I'm very, very much looking forward to, considering he is my favorite character, I'm very, very interested to see what they'll do. I think as a whole, looking at this year's show, I think the door is firmly open for a Fell Beast and a Witch King at a scale which is not like the old Sideshow one or the mini.
yeah.
I think that's firmly a possibility now. If the Master Collection proves popular, which I'm sure it will, I think we may see a premium in years to come, which is a Fell Beast and a Witch King. I suspect they'll continue the Frodo's journey in next year in the Masters Collection. So whether that's Grey Havens or Minas Tirith or something in the Shire, I don't know. Most likely Grey Haven. I would suggest. I could imagine a beautiful boat would just be stunning. But who knows? We'll wait and see.
Yeah, you never know what Weta will do with the Master Collection. Like, it's just, there's so many possibilities, and you know, they've shown that they're not going to pigeonhole themselves into, you know, just like, we're not going to just stick to 1/6 scale. You know, there's anything they could do, and so it's kind of, it makes it a lot of fun, especially with the Return of the King. A lot of fun to speculate on what they could do, because they've got so many options. And going back to the Fell Beast, given that like the Smog that Weta released just last year, and now Gwai here, like a Fell Beast seems like a natural thing to do next, because they've shown they can do that and do it in a way that's convincing and a good size, you know. I know Valkyrus hates this scene. He hates it. But the you know, when the Witch King's got his sword and he's telling, this is my hour, and his sword bursts into flames, that would make a really phenomenal Witch King statue. You know, I think that would just be
I like parts of it. I mean, well, for one, they've already done that kind of with the I think the Fingers of Fandom Witch King has the flaming sword. So I don't know if they were gonna retread that bit. I like parts of the moment, to be fair, because the parts of it that you can isolate, and again, because I'm a big stickler for the books, and I don't the fact they completely turned Gandalf the White into a total weakling in that scene. I'm like, oh, there goes another staff. There, I'm just gonna mop the floor with, you know, one of the most powerful Mayar beings in all of creation. I'm sorry, but yeah, the Witch King's a mighty foe, and in the books the moment is interrupted when the two are about to face off with each other. That's the moment when the horns of the Rohirrim sound and the Witch King turns away, and it's like, oh, we almost had this epic clash and it didn't happen. And what they came up with in the movie was just a very poor interpretation. I mean, come on. I mean, not that I wasn't impressed by the visuals of the Fell Beast landing and the Witch King whipping out the sword and it flames up and he's like, this is my hour, you fool, kind of thing. And but the reverse of that, which is, you know, just sorry, it's just a mess. I don't like it. Sorry.
I'm with you, Valkyrie. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I agree as well. It is if there's few scenes in the trilogies that I really have a problem with, I think that's one of them. And it's the scene itself is not great, but I think that we don't have the scene of the Witch King entering Minas Tirith when Grond breaks the gate. I think that could have just been a phenomenal show-stopping scene. You may be able to see the Ted Naismith depiction up at the top corner here. It's such a powerful scene, and if they ever do a Fell Beast, I'm hoping it's against Elwyn or Tyler you mentioned today, and I think it's a brilliant idea with the Gondorian cavalry. That could really anchor it, and it could be a kind of look no hands type of thing where the horses are grounded, but the Fell Beast is completely in the air. So yeah, very many possibilities. Of course, that wouldn't have the Witch King. It would just be one of the other Nazgul on it. But I'm sure we'll have plenty of other Witch Kings to enjoy.
Yeah, and just for those who maybe don't know what that scene Julian's talking about is when the Gondorians are fleeing Osgiliath back to Minas Tirith, and the Nazgul are kind of harassing them on their way there, and the Fell Beasts are swooping down, and they're picking up the horses and dropping them, and you get that one really cool shot where the Fell Beast swoops right towards you, and it sticks its talons out and just obliterates all these horses, and then we get Gandalf the White Rider with his staff. That scene would be really cool because you could have the horses, you could have 2 horses or whatever in the talons of the Fell Beast, and they're anchored to the ground, and then you could have the whole Fell Beast suspended from that. And because we kind of talked about how some of you guys didn't like the rocks for Gwaihir, how he's kind of sitting on the rocks almost. Well, you wouldn't have that problem with that kind of setup with that particular pose for the Fell Beast. Getting back to the Witch King though, I wouldn't be surprised, because Prime 1 and Darkside both released, and Infinity. We got 3 Witch Kings in like less than a year. I wouldn't be surprised if Weta maybe said, well, let's wait a year to unveil our Witch King, just so the space is a little crowded for Witch Kings right now. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case there. I mean, you never know. They do their own thing, but it seems logical.
And they have a pretty loyal following, so to a lot of collectors, it's like, oh yeah, sure, these are out there, but it doesn't mean I'm gonna get them because I know Weta will eventually release one, and because maybe the majority of my collection is already Sideshow Weta or just Weta, then they will wait for them to actually release their own version, and so not be fussed about the other pieces. I'm certainly that way. I haven't branched out into any of the other companies for my statue collecting. So I have the old Pelennor Fields Witch King, but I don't have the Eowyn that pairs off with it. I never really liked that piece. I think the likeness is pretty terrible. And it's one that just having the Witch King on his own works pretty well. It's a dynamic pose, but it's not over the top. So I really like that piece in my collection. I thought if they were to kind of revisit that scene, and they're not including the Fell Beast in any way, because at that point it's pretty much dead, would be when he rises from the ground and he kind of puts his chest out a bit and his arms are to his side and the flail kind of drops to the ground and he's got the sword in the other hand. I think that would be that would even fit in the classic series, to be honest. I don't know if that pose has actually been done by the other companies. I've not followed them, so I'm not sure what depiction they have, but to me that would be kind of the ultimate Witch King, where he's just facing you and he's got his weapons out and it's like, let's dance. So
it's funnily that's exactly the pose both Prime 1 and Darkside have done.
There you go. You thought I was being all original. Nobody's doing this. Weta's got to do it, but
going back to the classic series line and the Fountain Guard, I hope this sells really well for Weta. I think it will. and I hope that kind of gets them to do maybe some more just soldier statues. We had a fair number of those in the sideshow Weta days. They made a fair number of those, and we have the swordsman Uruk and the Rohirrim Royal Guard, and now this Fountain Guard, and I would love to see Weta do more of those pieces. Like, it doesn't have to always be a named character, because so much of the armor and the stuff that Weta made for the films just looks so fantastic and cool, and to have that in a collectible form is great. I wouldn't mind seeing the Erebor. I'm not a big Hobbit collector, but the Erebor guards in a statue would be very cool, because they've got some very cool armor. They don't have a lot of screen time, but they are very cool looking. Or the torch Uruk, that the chariots of fire Uruk that dives into the bombs. That would be another cool piece. Or a berserker, a new berserker. We haven't had a Weta berserker in a long time. There's the sideshow one, and then there was the sideshow Weta, and then the sideshow premium, and then the latest P1 one. But Weta hasn't done a berserker in a long time, so that would be another cool. So I hope the Fountain Guard sells well for them, and they feel emboldened to do some of these other not no named characters.
Yeah, I think it'll do well.
Yeah.
Honestly, though, how many of us are thinking that this classic series Fountain Guard may come with another unfortunate price hike for the classic series? I hate to be pessimistic, but I've just seen it happen so many times over the years. I mean, I know we got one not that long ago, and a $50 hike on that line. It's a fairly complex piece. Some would argue that, well, that should already be built into those $50 they started charging a year or two ago, however long that came. But I almost feel like would really suck if we're due for another and they find this the way, like, oh, people are going to want this so badly that we'll get away with it, and the statue is going to end up being $449 instead of the $399. But what do you guys think? Am I jinxing it by even mentioning it? I'll knock on some wood here, but
I think if we're going to get a price hike, I mean, the way things are sort of going right now, I could see it happen. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. I don't want it to happen, but the way that the world is sort of going right now, and I think everybody's just trying to catch up, businesses included, I wouldn't be surprised if we did get a $50 hike or something in the next year or so. The Fountain Guard is a very complex looking piece. I'm hoping against hope that it stays at that $399, but I don't think I'd be shocked if it did jump up for that specific one anyway. Because they did lower it for Frodo, because he's a smaller character, of course. So they are adjusting the prices based on what you're getting. Yeah, we'll see.
Or inflating the prices in the case of Gilgalad.
Oh God. Yeah.
I'm personally not expecting a hike for the Fountain Guard. Lurtz came out not that long ago, and he's 400, and I would say he's a fairly complex piece too, and they've kept him at 400. I wouldn't be surprised though if like when we looked at Saruman on Throne or even Gilgalad, Saruman is 400. We know, okay, they've kind of established a 1/6 scale character is $400, and then where does I can't remember exactly how much Saruman was, but it was like, okay, well, that means that the throne and the lights are like the price of a one or more, and so I could see a price kind of hike on the white tree, where we're kind of struggling to see, well, how did they arrive at that price? We know the Fountain Guard's at 400. If it's like $1,000, it's like, okay, well, we're paying, was that $600 for the white tree? It's like, okay, well, where did that come from? So I could see that happening, but I don't think the classic series is going to get a price hike. You know, I'll be the optimistic one to Valkrist's pessimism.
I want to be in your camp, but I'm just seen it
You'd be a
happen
lot
one too many
happier in my
times where that disappointment, they're like, oh man, really? Okay. But that's just life.
Yeah, I would hope that they stay for at least another couple of years at this rate. But who knows? It may well be adjusted for this particular one, or they may just stick to the current price. Maybe the premium piece will offset that a bit in terms of production cost and just make it simpler, and keep the price as it is. But I don't really know what their manufacturing process is like, and whether that would make any difference.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Really good point.
The flip side, and I can't see Weta going down in prices either. You know, just like a government, a government never gets rid of a tax.
They just
Even if a previous party brought it in,
Not true. Not true. We did have our GST reduced
That's
from its initial rate. It didn't go away altogether, but it did come down to 2 percentage points, which was nice. But anyways, we digress.
On average, though.
Yeah, on average, yeah. No.
Yeah. So, well, thank you guys for kind of joining us and, kind of doing the rundown on the Collectibles Expo and, all the fun stuff that Weta has kind of released. It was a lot of fun kind of looking forward to what they were going to bring out and discussing it. And it's been so far the Return of the King 20th anniversary, it kind of started a little slow the first half of the year, but we've kind of come to expect that. And it's off to the races now, so thank you for joining us and for giving us your thoughts on it, and happy collecting, and hopefully we get some cool stuff coming out in the next few months. So
well, thank you so much for having us. Yeah, really good to meet you all too.
Nice to meet you all. Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Anytime.
Good night.